age they used to release Brahmastras. But all these Brahmastras and nuclear weapons are insignificant compared to the thunderbolt of the King of Heaven. When Indra releases a thunderbolt, even the biggest hills and mountains crack. On the other hand, Maharaj Prithu was as tolerant as the earth itself, and he fulfilled all the desires of his citizens, just like torrents of rain from the sky. Without rainfall, it is not possible to fulfill one's various desires on this planet. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, 3rd chapter, 14th verse, Parjanyad Anna Sambhavaha. Food grains are produced only because rain falls from the sky, and without grains, no one on the earth can be satisfied. Consequently, an unlimited distribution of mercy is compared to the water falling from the clouds. Maharaj Prithu distributed his mercy incessantly, much like rainfall. In other words, Maharaj Prithu was softer than a rose flower and harder than a thunderbolt. In this way, he ruled over his kingdom. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshuronmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Yuta Pada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padhan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So welcome to the morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. We have been discussing from the 4th canto, 22nd chapter, in which Prithu Maharaj meeting with the 4 Kumaras was just described. After their departure, there are some verses starting with 48th up to 63rd verses. They talk about the glorious rule of Prithu Maharaj or his qualities. So Prithu Maharaj is a great king in the dynasty of Swayambhuva Manu. We find him described in the 4th canto particularly. He comes in the dynasty of Uttanapad king. Swayambhuva Manu had 2 sons and 3 daughters. The 2 sons were Priyavrat and Uttanapad, and 3 daughters were Akuti, Devahuti and Prasuti. So when in the Gurukul both the children were sent, both the sons, of which Priyavrat did not return only. He remained in the Narad Muni's Gurukul. He liked to remain brahmachari. He got heavily influenced by Narad Muni's preaching. He remained as a brahmachari. So younger son came back, Uttanpad. He was made the king by Swayambhu Manu. Then his son Dhruva Maharaj, that was described in the previous chapters. And down the line, Anga, Vena, and then from Vena comes Prithu Maharaj, who ruled very gloriously. And he was also blessed with the association of the 4 Kumaras. After serving them very nicely, then these are few verses in which his ruling over the earth is very nicely described. So it is said, a king who rules the world must have exalted qualities. For that matter, everybody is having some qualities. And a person is known by his qualities. Prabhupada says speech is the important quality of any person. One remains undetected, a fool remains undetected till he speaks. One may be very nicely dressed and look very beautiful, may look very rich and all that. But if he opens his mouth and speaks all the rubbish things of the mundane world, of his sense gratificatory plans, then it is all useless. So qualities are most important. We have four things about the Supreme Lord also: name, fame, qualities, and pastimes. So about the Lord, everything is glorious. About us, the name, okay, it is just for a differentiation. This person is different from that person. So for that reason, names are there. Form, the world may stress a lot of stress on this, how we look like, how one is dressed, how all those other things. That's why so many cosmetics and so many other things. But then form is also not important. Form keeps changing also. Krishna said, Dehi nosmin yatha dehi, kaumaram yauvanam jara. And as eventually one enters in the old age, the form will not look beautiful, though it might have been very beautiful in the youthful days. So what is most important are the qualities for any person, and speech is the most important for that matter in general. So here there are many qualities. In particular, this particular verse, 57th verse says, Maharaj Prithu was so strong and powerful, Durdharsha, Tejasevagnir, and that no one could disobey his orders any more than one could conquer fire itself. Now, who can conquer fire? It's almost impossible. Some great warriors could do, like Arjun says that Vayo Riva Sudushkaram. I cannot control my mind, I can control the wind. So they were very powerful archers, warriors, they could. But otherwise, in general, controlling the fire is almost an impossibility. When there are big fires in the big cities, they have this fire brigade coming, and with full force all those people are working. To some extent they may be successful, but to great extent there is a lot of damage there. The building gets burnt, many people die also. So fire cannot be conquered over. Similarly, the qualities, Prithu Maharaj was so strong and powerful that no one could disobey his orders. He was so strong that he was compared to Indra, the king of heaven, whose power is insuperable. On the other hand, Maharaj Prithu was also as tolerant as the earth, and in fulfilling various desires of human society, he was like heaven itself. So here are few qualities of Prithu Maharaj: his strength, his power, also his tolerance, and compared with king of heaven, Agni, fire, etc. And the qualities will continue in the further slokas also, up to 63 also. So in Bhagavad Gita, 18th chapter, Krishna talks about the qualities of the four people, four varnas: Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. About Kshatriyas, he says, Kshauriyam tejo dhrutirdaaksham yuddhe chapi apalayanam danam ishwara bhavasya kshatram karma swabhavajam. So some qualities of Kshatriyas. Here Prithu Maharaj, so to say externally, he is in the Kshatriya dynasty, he is a warrior, he is a ruler. So Shauriyam, they are heroic, heroism, they are very heroic. Then Tejo, they have a lot of power. Kshatriyas, that's why in the social body are compared to hands, arms. And we can see Kshatriyas, just by their arms we can understand. The Brahmanas, if you see, they are very lean and thin. Hardly any muscles and all. And they will never show off. But the Kshatriyas, like in the kingdom of Magad, when Jarasandha was ruling, and the three Kshatriyas, Krishna, assisted by Bhim and Arjun, when they entered, and they were disguised as Brahmanas. They stood in the line where Jarasandha was distributing charity. They all were towards the end. And Jarasandha was engaged in the act of charity. He was giving whatever people wanted, he was just giving. But then somehow he just could not, his eyes could not forgo the sight that these Brahmanas towards the end, three of them standing, they are so powerful. And they were so Brahmanas, so powerful like them. And as they were coming closer, he was giving charity here, but all of his attention was drawn by them only. And sure enough, when they came close, he saw them very closely, and it was very clear, these just can't be Brahmanas. And the top of that, there were marks of quiver. The Kshatriyas, they have this quiver, in that they have their arrows. So because of holding it all the time, there are some marks created. On three of them, their marks were very visible. And then he asked, what do you want in charity? I'm ready to give anything. And then they said, duel. We want to fight with you. So sure enough, Brahmanas are never interested in fighting. In fact, they are the ones who stop all the fights in the society because their internal quarrels are all over for a Brahmana. There are no material desires. So only because of material desires, there is so much of quarrel, so much of disturbance within the heart. So such a person is unqualified to set right the quarrels in the society. So Brahmanas, they are completely undisturbed. Dhiras tatrana muhyati. They have no material desires. Like in Chaitanya Charitamrita it is said, Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Ataiva Shantam. A pure devotee of the Lord has absolutely no material desires. That's why he is very shant, peaceful. No matter what turbulence may be going on around, the devotee of the Lord is undisturbed. He doesn't get disturbed. And that's how then he can calm down others who are so much disturbed. In one of the characteristics of Kali Yuga people is Upadritaha, the last characteristic. They are always disturbed. You can see to the degree we have material desires, selfishness, to that degree one will be always disturbed. And that's why in the Kali Yuga society today, in this 21st century, particularly in the cities where people are very passionate, and they are so disturbed. Every moment they are disturbed. In general, it is the characteristic of people in Kali Yuga, more so for city people who are very passionate, ambitious, and they have so many material desires. So they are always disturbed. So it requires a Brahman to calm them down. He can be very cool. Seeing him cool, they will be wondering, how can he be so cool? And then he will be asked, sir, what makes you so cool? Then he can say, because I am focused on the Supreme. Those which are not changing truths. There are so many relative truths which keep changing. And anybody who takes those relative truths to be absolute truths, he will be always disturbed. But the Brahman is always focused on absolute truth, which never changes. In all the time, place and circumstances, the absolute truth remains the same. So those who are focused on eternal principles, they are undisturbed. And those who are focused on temporary principles, they will be disturbed. So it takes a Brahman. So Tejo, they have power. The Kshatriyas have power. Dhrutir, they have a lot of determination. They will decide something and they will take it to the end. They will achieve it. Daksham, they are resourceful. Yuddhecha api apalayanam. They don't run away from the battlefield. They will be very heroic. They will die, they will take all the arrows, all the weapons on their chest, but they will not show their back to the other opponents and run away from the battle. If they do that, they are considered very low class. They are considered not even than Kshatriyas, Kshatra Bandhu. They are born in Kshatriya family, but they don't have qualities of a Kshatriya. Danam, they have generosity. That's like we saw in the case of Jarasan, for that matter, Karna, Duryodhan. When Arjuna approached him and said that I have come to you, he said, whatever you want, I will give. You want the kingdom? I will give you. And they just don't say that, they mean it. But they also know, Duryodhan knew, Arjun will not be interested in kingdom without war. So, but he gave offer. And if Arjun would have said, yes, I want the kingdom, immediately Duryodhan would have given. Similarly, Karna also, his Kavach Kundal was there, born with that for his protection. But when he was asked by Indra, disguised as a Brahman, that please give me your Kavach Kundal, he had to cut it from his body, so much of bleeding, but he gave it. So they have this Dana Bhav, they have this generosity, Ishvara Bhav, that is leadership, and Shatra Karma Svabhavajam. So these are the qualities of Kshatriyas by which they rule. The root word for ruling is Shas, Shasan, government. So those who are in the government, they do this. So they do this through Shastra. They are very expert in holding the weapons. They know how to use the weapons. And they will bring opponent who is against the law under control. By all the means, they are very powerful. They alone, they fight alone. They don't need any help also. They are Maharathis. Like that, a lot of qualities are described. Brahmanas rule by Shastra. They tell the Shastras and bring a person under control. That's how we find some few centuries back, around a century back, so many people, Pandits, so many learned people in India who would have so many debates, and the opponent would, he would become subservient to such a leader, like Madhvacharya, around 800 years back. He went all around India and he challenged so many people, and rather so many others also were interested in defeating Madhvacharya. They would have debate and Madhvacharya very effortlessly would defeat them. Then they would become his followers, his disciples. So through Shastra one can bring the opponent under control, or through Shastra one can bring under control. So the Kshatriyas, they bring others under control through Shastra. They are there for protection of the innocent, protection of the weaklings in the society. Kshati trayate iti kshatriyah. One who protects others from harm. The innocent people are always attacked, harmed by those who are very arrogant, those who are against the law. So such kind of injustice should be avoided. And when it is done, then the Kshatriya gives proper justice by fighting against the opponents. So 5 types of weaklings are there in society: the children, the women, the brahmanas, old men, and cows. So they need to be protected. And the Kshatriya is famous for protection. They have so much bahubal. They have a lot of, in Bhagavad Gita also Krishna at times addresses Arjuna as Mahabahu, one who has great arms. Arms everybody has, but there is hardly any strength in the arms. But the Kshatriya has a lot of strength with him. So these Kshatriyas represent the Supreme Lord. Here in particular, Prithu Maharaj, he is a Rajarshi, the sage amongst the king. Their externally gross body is of a king, but the subtle body is very much like a sage. So that is called as a Rajarshi. So Prithu Maharaj was one such Rajarshi. So they act on behalf of the Supreme Lord. Whatever the Lord wants, the way he wants the law to be in the society, so they exactly administer in the same way. They are in touch with the Supreme Lord, either directly because of being very great pure devotees of the Lord, or if not, through some brahmanas who also represent the Supreme Lord. And that is how what the 3 functions of the Lord, they say God, generator, operator, and destroyer. So similarly, Kshatriyas also, they generate so many avenues, so many facilities for the citizen to be able to peacefully practice Krishna consciousness, particularly. Having their gross needs also fulfilled, but simultaneously they are able to practice Krishna consciousness also. So they generate for, and they make sure that the things are maintained, those which are very important. And any kind of opposition to the law, to the dharma, so then the Kshatriya will destroy the mentality in the opponent, or if required, they will destroy the opponent himself. They will not spare his life also. We find in the case of Parikshit Maharaj, in the first canto, when he was going all around Bharatvarsha. This is not just India, this is Bharatvarsha. So he was going all around, and at one point of time when he found that a bull was attacked by some very rogue kind of person, dressed as a king, at once Parikshit Maharaj drew his sword and he was about to kill him. But when that person surrendered, then Kshatriyas have to give protection. So these are the qualities. In particular, Prabhupada here towards the end focuses on the contrasting quality or opposites of Prithu Maharaj, which is very much there in the translation also, or in the verse also. Titikshaya dharitriva dyor eva abhishtado nrunam. Though he was very powerful, like we discussed some of the things, but he was simultaneously very tolerant also. As far as personal insult goes, one should be able to tolerate. That is not very much the characteristic of a Kshatriya. Kshatriya is tested by how much he cannot tolerate an insult. And that is very much required for administration. Just like in the case of Dhruva Maharaj, just a small boy of 5 years. But when his stepmother, Suruchi, who saw him trying to climb on the throne where Uttanapad was sitting, and his stepbrother, Uttam, was sitting on one lap, other lap is empty. And children have the nature, whenever they find their brother, cousins, they have a particular thing, they also want it. So he thought, might as well I would sit in the another lap, which is anyway empty. When he was attempting to be there, behind Suruchi was there, she at once said, Dhruva, you cannot sit there. You are not qualified. Because you are not born from my womb. If at all you have to sit there, you have to give up this body. This is useless body, because not born from my womb. And you have to take another body from my womb. Then you can sit there. When he heard it, he was so angry, so angry. Just imagine if we would have been in such place, maybe we would not have understood. But the Kshatriyas, his blood was boiling, his eyes became red hot, and then his hair disheveled, and he looked behind. It was well known that Suruchi is only there, stepmother. From voice he could understand, but still he looked back, and sure enough she was there. Then he looked at his father, Uttanapad, who was right in front, and Dhruva had almost reached his lap. So he looked at father, please. He did not speak, his eyes spoke. Please give justice. I have been, this is injustice. I am also your son. I can sit there. So then Uttanpad being he was attached to his another wife, Suruchi, he was silent. Attachment makes one helpless. Attachment makes one, he will be committing lot of injustice. Anybody who is attached materially, he will not be able to do justice. So here Uttanpad shows by his life that he could not do justice to his very young innocent child. And then Dhruva became so angry, we know the rest of the story. He went to the forest in order to get kingdom greater than his great grandfather. So that is the level of the Kshatriyas. They can be very angry, intolerant about the insult. But then also, as far as personal insult goes, in personal life, one should be very tolerant. Amanina manadena. One should respect others and one should not expect respect for oneself. So one who gives respect to others, he will not expect any respect for himself. Or if one takes all the respect for himself, then what remains to offer to others? Nothing remains. So one should not take respect. One can take it for the parampara, one can take it for the lineage, not for oneself. So here Prithu Maharaj is described to be very powerful but simultaneously very tolerant. Whenever it comes to tolerance, and physical tolerance, etc., then always the analogy is about Mother Earth, Bhumata. She is very tolerant. So many big mountains are there on the body of Mother Earth. So many huge oceans are there. And so many buildings, so many trees, so many things. She can tolerate everything. She has a lot of tolerance. But it is said that she cannot tolerate even the sins of one man who is very sinful. That's why then Lord comes again and again, because the consort Bhudevi has a lot of difficulty with such sinful people. Then the Lord personally comes and kills all those people. So he was exacting taxes like the son, but then he was also mercifully distributing the so many avenues, so many things, facilities for his citizen, like rainfall. Sun in the summer season is very hot, scorching sun rays. Through that it takes water and then eventually comes in the form of rainfall and gives out all the water. In fact, apparently even in the places where it seems water is not required. So that is, both the sides are there in the sun. We can see that it takes all the water from the surface of the earth, but then also gives out in another season. So that kind of behavior is very much there in those who are in the mode of goodness. Those who are in the mode of passion and ignorance, generally they will be conducted by one thing only. There will be one extreme. So passion is on one extreme and ignorance is on another extreme. One will be very much inactive in ignorance. He is very lazy, doesn't want to, and is very sluggish. So much inspiration you have to give. Still whether he will get up for doing work or seva or not is a question. And the other side, somebody is hyperactive. And you have to stop him. Prabhu, wait. Wait. Let others also do. You are only doing everything. So one is hyperactive on the other side. But the person in the mode of goodness, he is just appropriately active. He knows when to do things himself and when to empower others or allow others to do also, so that they also make progress. So the two extremes are there. As long as one is in passion, very active, and one is in ignorance, inactive, then one will have lot of difficulty and he creates problem for himself as well as for people around him. So that's why what is required, expected is to be in the mode of goodness, basic minimum. Everywhere in Bhagavad Gita, all the instructions, they focus on being in the mode of goodness. Like karmanneva adhikaraste, just perform your duty. So be in the mode of goodness. Mahaphaleshu kadachan, don't be attached to the fruits of your action. That means don't be passionate. Anybody who works, like all these people in Hyderabad, software, high-tech city and all, so many software engineers, tell them you won't have any salary at the end of the month. Will anyone go there to the company? Nobody will go. So they know lucrative jobs, lot of payment, 5-digit number. So everybody is mad to come from wherever villages and all that to cities like Hyderabad, Bangalore, Delhi, Mumbai, etc. So don't be attached to the fruits of your action. That means don't be passionate. Ma karma phala heturbhur mate sangosto karmani. Don't be attached to not doing your work also. Now, if I'm not going to get anything through my work, then I won't work. No, don't be attached to not doing your duty also. You have to do it without being attached to the fruits. So that means don't be in ignorance. So very clearly message of Krishna everywhere in Bhagavad Gita is at least be in the mode of goodness. Nowhere he recommends passion or ignorance. Yukta ahara viharasya, yukta chestasya karmasu, or nati, what is it says? Don't be too much eating. That means ignorance. Ignorant fellows eat like anything. They have all the time in their life to keep eating only. Nothing else is there. And the next is sleeping. But passionate people don't have time to eat only. They will hardly eat. So don't eat too less. Don't sleep too much like ignorant people, and don't sleep too less like passionate people. So yukta, just the appropriate quantity, what is required for recovering body or having healthy body, eating, sleeping, etc. So goodness is very much recommended, and those who are in the mode of goodness, they are in the middle. Many times we hear, don't be extremist, be in the middle path. That is in the mode of goodness. So he is not inactive like ignorant fellow, and he is not hyperactive like a passionate fellow. He knows when to act himself and when to delegate, when to tell others to do the things. Such a person can show such example, what he is being talked over here. Because in earlier section of third canto, where Lord Kapila talks to Mother Devahuti, bhakti was described in three modes, in ignorance, passion and goodness. So all the examples come in the fourth canto. In ignorance, Daksha performed. In passion, Dhruva performed. And in goodness, Prithu Maharaj performed. So Prithu Maharaj is very much in the mode of goodness. In fact, he is the administrative potency of the Lord, who is setting right norm, right example. So this is what is said here. Prabhupada quotes towards the end of the purport. Maharaj Prithu distributed his mercy incessantly, much like rainfall. In other words, Maharaj Prithu was softer than a rose flower and harder than a thunderbolt. In this way, he ruled over his kingdom. So how to have two extremes? It's just not possible for a passionate person or ignorant person. The ignorant people, they are many times fearful because they don't have knowledge. When one is in ignorance, doesn't know what's going to come, then he is very much fearful of the future. And those who are passionate, they are conducted by their material desires. So they also will be on other side, other extreme. Only those who are in the mode of goodness, they are on the duty platform. So duty towards others, duty towards family members, duty towards society, duty towards, so certainly Guru, certainly towards the Supreme Lord. So Brahmanas are like that. They are